It's in classical chess today, this afternoon. Here it's 4 p.m., a little after 4 p.m. Eastern Time in the United States. And this is my second stream back since starting my 2-month visit here to the U.S. Troll and a roll. Real sadism. It looks like... I don't know what that is. Can't see it from here. I need new glasses. Troll and a roll, what is that? Good to see you guys. Arsenal fan Richie, troll and a roll. Some of our regulars who are not in the U.S. time zones, in Europe and further abroad, like troll and a roll. It's very, very hot here today, troll and a roll, but I did keep my chest covered up. But I have this towel, this handy towel here. I'm going like with the full Quang Liem style. Now 2700 Quang Liem used to always bring a towel to the board. He would like put it in front of him, I guess to kind of like pad his elbows at the table or something. But sometimes he would profusely sweat and have to like use the towel of the 2700. But we are ready to go, guys. How surreal are you finding it back in the States? Arsenal fan Richie. It's not that surreal because I do this. I've been doing this pretty much every year for like the last 6 years. So it's it was kind of surreal the first couple times I was doing it, but I'm pretty much used to the pattern now. So it becomes less and less strange for me. All right, we got the coffee. It's at the beach today. Hi, why are you live now? Because I'm in the United States, and I'm trying to do the stream at a time that might be kind of accessible to both the U.S. players and my European regulars. So I know it's late for the European guys, but still 9 or 10 p.m. Is still doable, you know. If you're late for work tomorrow, it's no problem. Gunther Central Perk. You shouldn't cover up your chest. It takes from the rewatch value of your streams. Man, I was at the beach today, man. I was bearing it all, almost. But no, seriously, I just want to get started. We've got 6 challenges. I'm just going to take the challenges in order. I got 4 challenges, actually. I'm going to take the challenges in order today. I don't feel like dealing with randomizing the challenges. So, troll and a roll is first. It's 7 plus 5. I could be a little tired out from the sun at the beach today, but I feel good. We got fresh coffee. It's Chess 960. I can play 1 or 2 Chess 960 games. We usually have time for maybe 10 classical games on the stream, and I don't mind making like 1 or 2 of them Chess 960. So, troll and a roll. If you'd like to get started. Did you hear about the Boston accident today? No, I did not, Arsenal fan Richie. I did not. I have not checked the news since I got home. I have not checked the news since this morning. What sort of accident are we talking about? Alright, D4. It's a matter of central control. Looks good, though. There shouldn't really be any bad pieces in this type of position. Getting my bishops and knights and whatnot into the game. I don't know. This knight might have to go to b6, which I'm not really thrilled by. Taxi cab mode through and put 10 people in the hospital. Not terrorism. They're just Boston drivers, man. Yep. That's Boston drivers, man. I had extreme road rage when I was living in Boston. I mean, I would just lay on the horn for like 5 minutes. And I mean, sometimes I told once on the stream how I got into a fight, almost a fight with a trash truck driver. And it wouldn't have been pretty because this guy was slightly obese, but he was a lot bigger than me and a lot stronger. And it wouldn't have been a good idea. But I had so much road rage because this the trash truck was going the wrong way down a one-way street, and I had the right of way. I mean, I was going the correct way, you know. But Boston road rage, not to make light of what happened, but yeah, I'm not surprised. Small town, you know, a lot of narrow streets, lots of traffic. It's like 4th of July weekend. I guess somebody just like lost it or something. But hopefully no one is, like, you know, critically injured. So anyway, d4, d6, e4, a6. I'm looking for bishop development here. This knight is a little bit screwed, but we've got good diagonals for our bishops. So that was my first thought. The king is in an odd place, but it does protect c7, which is cool. I'm just kind of pretending it's like the Khan Sicilian or something, you know, this bishop on the a7 diagonal. But I have limited ventilation here. There's one window open, but I've got the handy towel here. I just took a shower and I was at the beach, and you know how, like, when you take a shower, after you take a shower and it's hot weather, you're like sweating for like half an hour after that. I'm kind of in that stage now. So anyway, knight b3. This pawn is unprotected. That could be an issue. As much as I hate knights on b6, I might have to temporarily deal with this, with the idea of castling queenside. It looks a little awkward at the moment, admittedly, but this knight I thought could actually pop back to d7, where it wouldn't be that bad. It does interfere with my other knight there. It is a little awkward, admittedly. This is a little more hyper modern than I really intended. But my bishops are in good shape. Tough opening for the light scored bishop, yeah. His light scored bishop in particular. I'm looking for maybe g6 or g5 for my queen, and maybe rook on g8. Some kind of hippopotamus type of thing, like e6, g5. We're a little congested, especially with the black pieces. Clash Kid, I heard it's dangerous in the US. El Chapo is still alive. I don't know who that's dangerous for. Maybe a lot of people. But some more than others. El Chapo is in jail, though, although I don't know if that really makes a difference. El Chapo is not my main fear in life. Let's see. Let's see here. Knight back to d7. He's got veiled threats against b7. I mean, the plan was to castle queenside. Let's go for it. It looks a little dangerous. Having seen g3, I'm a little worried about this, but I think we'll be okay. Just barely. He's got knight a5. I could have actually considered knight a4 myself. But, I mean, it's like a one-piece attack. In general, I don't like starting attacks with one piece, nothing else. This is like a cheapo, just attacking b2. Welcome everybody who's not regularly watching my stream. I'm going to be streaming at this time, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. For the next 2 months. The air here must be better because my chronic coughing has gone away after just a few days. Maybe it's like the air pollution in Budapest. I don't know. Normally I'm streaming in Budapest, Hungary. We're in the US for 2 months. And today we're playing blitz and classical chess. If you want to challenge me, any kind of challenge between 5 plus 3 and 8 plus 3, that increment can be 5 seconds, 4 seconds, whatever you want. 5-3, 5-4, 5-5, 6-3, 6-4, 6-5, 7-3, 7-5, up to 8-3. And 8-3, 8 plus 3 seconds, it's like the maximum. So the longest challenge I'm going to accept in this 2.5 hour stream is an 8 plus 3 challenge. You made it. What's up? Soul Tigo. You're probably the first person ever who has talked about the fresh air of Massachusetts. Arsenal fan, I don't know. Have you ever been here? It's not the dirtiest state in the United States. Boston is a relatively clean city, actually. So I don't know if you really have the right picture in your mind. It's not like, you know, and the Western Massachusetts is like country, practically. It's like New York State, upstate New York. So I'm not sure if you really have a good image of what Massachusetts is like. It's not like New York City or something. All right, I'm a little worried about the b7 pawn. That's going to be an issue. I didn't really want to have to play c6 in the immediate future. Maybe we'll play e6. I know this looks a little weird, but I talked about the kind of hippopotamus thing going on here. This keeps knights off of d5. It will allow me to play d5 myself, which will blot out his queen and directly stop any attacks against b7. Now, in Boston is basically like a technology hub, and a student college town. It's not, you know, a lot of factories in this 21st century like a lot of U.S. cities. But I live in a coastal area. I don't live in Boston. The air is pretty fresh here. Okay, bishop a2. He's finally making some good use of that bishop, kind of. Now the rest of my pieces, I think it's time for Mr. or Mrs. Queen. Maybe we'll go with the g5 because it's a little bit weakening, but having played e6, you know, that was one of my thoughts, to play g5. And the e6 pawn keeps his knight off of f5. We're just rolling out, you know, the artillery here very gradually. Extremely hyper-modern, but everything's kind of coordinated, and grabbing a little space on the side there. Maybe even h5 and g4, or just h5, knight g6. Troll-and-a-Roll's biggest problem, like me but worse, is his affinity to get into time pressure. Okay, c3 is a move that's obviously geared to just defend this pawn on d4, but it's, you know, not optimal because he weakens a lot of squares, and the white squares in particular. Not really sure what I should do now. The knight a5 is still sort of hanging in the balance as a possibility. Bishop a4 is a move, but it's just sort of artificial, although it still might not be that bad. I think we need to get the knight into the game. Let's go with this. The other knight will retain this retreat square on d7. Well, I mean, it looks like nothing's happening to the uninitiated here, but I feel like I'm a little bit better coordinated, and I just feel like my pieces, maybe I have less pawn weaknesses. Okay, knight a5, it's not really a threat. If he plays e5, I can lock it with d5. I didn't really want to play c6. It's quite a weakening move. But it would be interesting, Arsenal fan retreat, if we look up, you know, like pollution of American states, like probably Massachusetts is not at the top of the list. Knight a5 here. I mean, I grew up near Philadelphia. That city is a lot dirtier than Boston, probably. Let's see here. Knight a5. We'll have to close it up French style if he plays e5. That's not really a problem. I'm not sure what exactly I'm doing at this point, though. Maybe bringing my knight back here wouldn't be so stupid. Kind of shore up the defense a little bit. I admit I don't have a clear plan, but this idea of just trading off the knight on a5 might be good enough, you know. And meanwhile, all my pieces seem to be working. That's my #1 goal. It's happening very gradually here. Chess 960 seems to develop more gradually, more slowly than normal chess. A lot more closed positions with all the pieces on the board. Maybe bishop b5 with knight c4 for black. Yes, Maybe at some point, but once he played knight a5, I kind of lost my interest. Somebody's... Yeah, let's just trade this guy off. I mean, he's his best piece. My bishops look good. He's not castled yet. Where is he going to castle, you know? We have less pawn weaknesses. I like the bishop on c6. Okay, interesting decision by Troll on a Roll to not trade pieces. Interesting in kind of a good way, I think. Often I say interesting when I'm trying to be polite to students and other people about things that, it's not really a good move, but it's not that bad, so I'll say like interesting. I have a tendency to do that. In this case, I mean, it is kind of an interesting move. I mean, in principle, he's justified, you know, not trading pieces with a slight space advantage. So I'm not really sure what I should do. I was thinking about h5. Am I just randomly grabbing space there? Again, like knight a4 is just a lunging with one piece type of attack. I think it's very uncoordinated. It's like boxing, and the boxer is just like lunging with one punch, getting completely off balance, you know. There's actually chess boxing, right? Chess boxing, there's some parallels between chess and boxing I never really thought about. Coordination probably being the number one thing there that would make a lot of sense. I'm even tempted to play a5. That seems kind of crazy. What now? How about a waiting move? King b8, tucking the king away to a safe position. We'll pass. Okay, he's castling. We're both short of time now. a5 becoming more interesting than it was a moment ago. More interesting, for sure. a5, a4. Let's go for it. a5, d5, a4, d takes c, a takes b, bishop takes b, bishop takes c6, with looking like a decent position for black. I trade a wing pawn for a central pawn. In that instance, again, all the pieces are coordinated. The pizzas. Actually, this bishop here supports, that bishop supports the pawn on a4. I can push a4, then follow up with like knight a5 and start infiltrating. Possibly, you know, he's looking at a knight on a1, which might not be that bad, actually. What? To discredit Bobby Fischer? Well, listen, I think the difference is Fischer intended that the players like choose how you set up the pieces on the back rank. If I'm not mistaken, I think that's truly what Fischer had intended. That you decide where to put all the pieces, each player. And it can be like different, you know, like you can set up them in one way and I can set them up in another. So actually Fischer random, it's not the same thing. Now here I miscalculated something. Forgot this pawn was hanging at the end of the day. So I didn't really want to have to do this. But I have knight e5. Alright. That should at least... well, at least not lose material. Alright. We're headed for e5. We've got a good square. d3 is weak. We've got knight e3, knight f2. He can probably protect. If he takes on e6, we've got check and take on f2 at the very least. Now, everything's secure except for my knight on e5. My knight on e5 can get chased away, so slightly artificial move, but it solves two, kills two birds with one stone. Alright, knight coming to d4 is awkward. And Troll lost on time. I think black is about equal. I guess I'm not better after allowing this maneuver to d4. Let's see what the computer says. Well, it doesn't like knight d4. There must be something wrong with that. No, that's second choice now. So the engine thinks I'm slightly better here. I you know, find that black's a tiny bit better coordinated, but I really, okay, h3, h5. Here, bishop d7. Again, my knight on b6 still not really living up to its potential. Okay, Troll, good game. Classic Troll loss on time. Soltigo, what? Thought his idea was to have chess 960 as a tiebreak where the position would be chosen by random. I don't know. That's possible too. But I'm not sure that Fischer intended to be the way it is. We could probably clarify it somehow, but I don't have an official explanation for you. Arsenal fan Richie is up next. 8+3. Guys, please subscribe on Twitch. And over time, we will try to create some benefits for people who subscribe to the channel. Preferential treatment. T-shirts. Who knows? Like, what could happen in the future. All right, Arsenal fan Richie. Guys, also support the stream. Please support the stream either by subscribing or by supporting us on PayPal with a donation, either on my YouTube channel, Video Chess Training on YouTube. This Friday, I should be able to put up a new video. Once a week, I've been traveling the last week, but once a week I normally try to put a new video, as well as my live streams that have been recorded on the YouTube channel, Video Chess Training on YouTube. Man, I feel so much better without that cough I had for like 2 weeks. I thought I had developed asthma. Not streaming kind of helped a little bit too. Now, Arsenal fan Richie did this before, and again, I was like reaching for my e-pawn. This is a variation. It's very rare. It's rarely played, like c3. I can't find any master games with this. Usually white castles first. It's tempting to play like bishop a6, but once again, white could change plans and play like d3 and c4, and then my bishop looks stupid. So I think at the end of the day, I came to the conclusion that knight f6 was the best move here. Very rare position. Soltigo says, GM Game Reviews has been excellent so far. Yeah, let me know, guys. Bruce Pandolfini style. Don't bring your queen out early. Good advice. You can go pretty far with general principles. I will say that. Now queen e2, and I think this was what we looked at post-mortem the last time I played with Arsenal fan. Queen e2 was played by Sipke Ernst or someone like that. No, it wasn't. I take it back. It wasn't Sipke Ernst. It was oh man, what's his name? A GM from Europe. He's got like a Serbian name, but he lives somewhere else, like in Netherlands. The name will come to me. But Queen E2 is probably good. I could play Bishop G4, but I'm starting to think that E5 might be a good move for white here. Now we can still play E5. What other options really do exist here? E5 now. Should be okay. The queen on E2. D4, take. I mean, I don't know. I just don't like allowing white to play the move E5. But I guess I can't allow it. I could play Bishop G4 there. That would be the safer route to have tried. If I had to do over again, I'll probably play Bishop G4. That looks pretty solid. Get it outside the pawn chain. Not sure I have any other moves, actually. I mean, it's really either E5 or Bishop G4. Nothing else really inspires me. I don't like G6, E5. Maybe I could play that. On the YouTube channel, Video Chess Training on YouTube, yeah, I do different stuff. I like to go over Grandmaster games, analyze them. Anyway, we're sitting here for like an hour while he had made a move H3. But now, you know, the more time I can gather here, the more my position looks better. Knight h5 is possible. But it looks premature. g6 is tempting to develop my bishop to a more active position than it would normally go, but we're going to play it safe. We'll suck it up, play it safe here, develop old Indian style. You know, what I'd like to do is play f5, break the center, but I may have to worry about other things first. He played h3. I mean, I think that's kind of a weakening of his king's side. Ultimately, it's not easy to exploit it in the short run. But in the long run, I think that could be, you know, King's Indian type position. We're going to sack a bishop on h3, maybe win the game. I mean, we're a long ways away from that, but it could happen anyway. This position is kind of reverting to something very similar to what I had with this opponent last week, except he's played h3 and put his queen on e2. And I don't really think the queen is that great on e2. It's not that bad, but it could be exposed. And the move h3 might not be bad. It might not be bad here. All right. h3 typically is played in this kind of structure where he wants to keep actually the knight off of g4. Probably sometimes my knight off of g4, bouncing around into e5, maybe liberating my bishop to f6, something like that. We're on rook e8. The one problem here is the queen on e2. Now this could cause some discomfort for white. That queen, you know, last time he put his queen on a4, it really belongs on f3, I think. Somewhere like active but safe and not vulnerable to being attacked. So anyway, welcome guys. I'm International Master William Paschall. We're streaming for 2.5 hours here, Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. Summer schedule from the USA. We're going to be doing blitz and classical chess. Sundays I do a simul as I did last night, a little bit later. About 5 o'clock Eastern time. Eastern summertime. USA summertime, Eastern. What do we call it? Standard time? What? I don't even know. Too many time zones. It just gets confusing. Let's talk about chess. Okay, rook e1. Now, it's tempting to play like bishop f8, but in the event of bishop g5, h6, bishop h4, let's see, g5. It's interesting. Interesting. We could play like d5 as well. Where would my knight go? It looks like a Philidor. 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 Yeah, that variation where I go like bishop f8, bishop g5, h6, bishop h4, g5, bishop g3, knight takes e4, knight takes e4, d5. I don't really see anything wrong with it, honestly. I mean, maybe he'd have queen h5 at the end of the day, but that wouldn't really matter, would it? So we can do it. I mean, we can play h6, g5, chop on e4, and just get our piece back with interest. The king's side, we can afford it, you know, with the bishop on f8 to go King's Indian style. So I'm not worried about bishop g5. Clash Kid says, you like the 4 p.m. Eastern start time because I can join weekly streams now. I wish you stay in the U.S. forever. Well, I'm not allowed to stay in the U.S. forever because I have relatives who are on an ESTA travel visa, which means you can't stay longer than like 3 months. But, you know, who knows? In the future, it's possible I'll be moving back here. It's really up in the air. but there are more important things in life than the starting times of chess streams. What else could we do? We could go rook e5. That'd be kind of funky. Rook e5 and sack the exchange. I'm going to stick with my guns here. It looks like, I mean, unless I'm missing something obvious, you know. G5, bishop g3, knight takes e4, in your face, King's Indian tactic. Knight takes e4, d5. Okay, I mean, maybe he has some compensation, but I've got to be, you know, freeing myself, you know, from that Marazzi bind kind of thing that's going on here. Larry Christensen, or Larry C, as some people call him, you know, he'll often say, if you see a good move, look for a better one, you know, and I think this is good advice. It's like, I just assume d5. I could play knight takes e4, knight takes e4, f5, but it weakens my king side pretty significantly. So, I don't know if Rich is listening to the stream or not, but, you know, we're just eliminating his center. His position is still sound. I think that I have a lot of pawn weaknesses, so he's going to be down a pawn, maybe temporarily. That's okay though, because he hasn't really created any weaknesses in his position. So I think he's okay here. You know, I think that both sides are okay. I've got two Bs that look pretty active. I think if this was a tournament game, obviously I would have spent a lot more time on this. Maybe looking for other options, not this simplifying line. I don't know, I think am I missing some chat here? It's got quiet in the stream here. Guys, please subscribe to my Twitch channel, and if you do so, it will be to your benefit. Queen c2. All right, good. That's a better square altogether. I think that's where the queen like would have been better off straight up in the beginning. All right, we take with the pawn. We take with the pawn or the rook. I guess we take with the pawn. He's gonna get his pawn back, but we unleash the bishops. I would evaluate this around equal. The two bishops start to look kind of dangerous now. c5. Somewhere I was reading recently, one grandmaster was talking about, I guess it was Suba, who I talk about a lot. You know, he was saying how domination is pretty much like the most single most dangerous concept in chess. Got the slicey dicey bishops at the cost of a kind of broken pawn structure. Wow, that's an excellent move. Not what I was really planning on. I mean, I was expecting knight b3 to attack my pawn, but he's not going there. He's playing this instead. So he's not attacking my pawn. He's planning rook e1, and you know, one important skill is to kind of like read your opponent's mind. You want to try to be able to read your opponent's mind as much as possible. I'd like to play bishop c6, but this knight on e5 is going to be a real problem. I mean, bishop c6 pointing at his king side would be nice, but rook e1. This way, bishop e6 keeps an eye on the a2 pawn. It's not a target for knight e5. In the event of knight e5, we can play like bishop g7 at some point. I still think this is about equal, despite my king side being slightly weakened. And now rook d1. I think the rook d1 is a good complementary piece for him. It's like helping him attack me with a weakened king position. I think it's a good exchange for black to trade rooks here. And I'm not going to accept a draw. That rook exchange is good for me. I mean, objectively, I'm looking at potentially an ending where, you know, he could be slightly worse. All right, let's see. Not really worse, but You know, I have no real risk here. I mean, it feels like with the two bishops, he's got no threats against my king. So, I mean, unless he plays like bishop e5, queen, and gets the queen and bishop on a long diagonal, something like that. I mean, realistically, if he takes, I take on a2. Position becomes more double-edged. So, looks like black is like, I would say, because of the two bishops here, mine like minutely better. Probably like 0.2 centipawns better for black at this point. You know, I mean, it's not a whole lot, but it's something. If I were to trade queens, what would happen? Reduce my risk factor, but also probably reduce my chances of winning. How about queen b5? I just don't accept a draw here because I just don't see any way I'm really likely to lose. Maybe bishop g7. Actually, putting the bishop on d4. Wow, that's just really dangerous for white. Opening up his king. Maybe he wants to play bishop f2? Just don't know. I mean, I think he's losing a pawn if he does that. Okay, this got a little sharper than I really anticipated, but I really can't be worse here. Bishops are extremely, extremely dangerous. Still white is hanging on. Now, if I could play f5, f4, it's probably game over. I mean, with that kind of bishop and queen coordination. But fortunately for white, it's not going to be so easy. This is kind of a tense battle, but I think that black stands slightly better. Knight d6, queen e6, hitting b3, guarding f7, keeping an eye on f5. Knight d2, a little different because this way he's heading for f3. His king side is fairly well protected. Keep an eye on the b3 pawn. He's back to c4 now. Okay, so f5. That's what I wanted to do before. Now he's kind of under some pressure because this f pawn acts like a battering ram to open up his king side. He's not dropping a piece here, contrary to popular belief. Not really sure. It's kind of a weird position. I mean, I am better. I feel I am better, but okay, that's like suicide. Looks like suicide. Queen g4. Maybe there's just no defense to that. He just can't afford to weaken his king side with those bishops bearing down on his king. But, you know, this was really just white playing f4 and h4. It was, as I said, just minutely better for black. Okay, Rich. Good game overall. Just the f4 and h4. You should have been able to hold that, probably. You played queen d2. I think he would be up a pawn instead of queen f1. Queen d2 instead of queen f1. Up a pawn. Up a pawn. How's he up a pawn? Wait a second. What are you talking about? Queen d2 instead of queen f1. It is a better move. Aha, you're right. He is up a pawn. I completely missed that. Oh, wow, I have bishop c3 here. That's a lucky trick. I didn't see that, obviously. You know, so I'm able to regain the pawn with this tactical trick. It's still, though, even after f4, he's probably still holding on. H4 was the final straw that broke the proverbial camel's back. Arkan said, hello. Thank you again for letting me play in your simul yesterday, even though I had not enough games. Yeah, Arkan, you seem like quite a good player. It's my pleasure. But you were participating in the chat, and, you know, it just didn't seem like you were just some random guy who was going to troll me by using a computer. So I decided to make an exception. All right, guys, we're going to play the challenges in order. Sometimes I take the challenges randomly, but today I'm a little bit, lazy, so I decided to just take the challenges in order. We're going to mix it up probably. Some days I'll just do the challenges in order. Some days I'll just kind of randomize them. Salty Ego, as I like to call him. This guy is now rated 2108, which is quite respectable. Arsenal fan. I think your draw offer was reasonable, but most players who are higher rated are not going to take a draw in that position because there really, was very little chance of me losing, and I have this sort of token advantage of the two bishops. But as you can see, I mean, there are ways that it could go against you. So just weakening your king side, really it's kind of unpleasant. You have to kind of do nothing in that position. I mean, f4 wasn't a losing move. It just gave me some chances. But it's kind of awkward to play sometimes when really basically all you can do is nothing. All right, guys, I've got to move to a new position. I twisted my leg under the chair. I have a tendency to do that. Sometimes I'm playing the old Indian, a kind of old. I don't like the proper old Indian with like knight d7 because it's very passive. But sometimes I like to play the old Indian. However, after knight f3, I cannot play e5, so it's not really a proper old Indian. Could play bishop g4 here, but I'm going to stay within my repertoire. Oh my god. Oh my god, it's Twitch Prime member. I have Twitch Prime too, but it's not, I haven't actually hooked it up to my Twitch account. I mean, I have Amazon Prime, but you don't need to be an Amazon Prime subscriber to subscribe to my channel. Alright, e3. I had a friend who used to do this on a serious level. If you play the French defense, basically this is a form of like French defense in reverse. So people like to play the King's Indian attack against the French defense, but I think that Saltigo is putting his bishop on the wrong square. You're going to be vulnerable to e5, sorry, arrows. e5, e4, you're going to get forked. Either bishop on e2 with a knight on f3, or you put bishop on d3 with a knight on e2. But as far as I know, bishop on d3 with a knight on f3, not really the greatest. Not really the greatest combination of pieces. You should link it to your account. No more ads on Twitch is godlike. I'm incredibly lazy and also technologically slow, so that's that. But eventually I will get around to it. Guys, I'm going to be doing this Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I'm also simuls on Sunday. I have a YouTube channel, Video Chess Training on YouTube, which you should check out and subscribe and like over there. I'm not a world famous YouTuber, but I do like to create some content, and you guys can benefit from it. Probably this Friday, I will create or put up a video I've created on YouTube on the channel. We recently got our affiliate status on Twitch, so you can subscribe now. If you don't want to do that, just support the channel by hanging out with us or making a donation to support my channel on my YouTube and Twitch with PayPal. Sotigo says, appreciate the advice. Not my typical position. Well, it's not really. Yeah, I mean, you could call it advice, but it's more like fact. Just known, you know, there are two good systems for white. You know, bishop on e2, knight on f3, or bishop on d3, knight on e2. But this is like you're setting yourself up for this pawn fork, which means that you're gonna have to like lose a move or do something you otherwise like probably wouldn't normally do. Now he's made an exchange that theoretically isn't very good for white. He's played d takes e, trading the strong pawn for a not so strong pawn. I mean, if you watch masters play or analyze positions, you'll see like when they make a capture, they're replaying the game. When they make a capture, they'll just actually take the d pawn and the d6 pawn, the d4 and d6 pawn off the board in one grab, you know, when they're showing the game to someone else. And that's effectively what happened. He's trading this pawn on the 4th rank, which is his strong point, for this pawn that I have on the d6 square, which isn't really that great. So pretty much like a win-win situation for black. There's another small benefit which can be seen in that sometimes this bishop can come back on the f8 diagonal and activate on this diagonal f8 a3 in the King's Indian. So that's a side benefit. You know, obviously on g7 it's not doing anything. I couldn't play e4 yet. Now he's played e4, and that means that there's a hole on d4 now. And arrow, circle. Hole on d4, not really good for white. If I establish a piece on that square, he's going to have a real problem. Now his bishop on c2 is not great. He's got a hole at d4. You see, I don't have a corresponding weakness at d5 because I have a pawn on c6. He has no pawn that can kick a piece out of d4. If I'm able to maneuver a knight into d4, for example, he'll have to take, giving me like basically a protected passed pawn on d4. Boring position doesn't exist. I guess you're right in a way. Are we talking about chess or something else? Anyway, position where the only way for either side to continue is to move back and forth is boring. I guess it's all up to you, man. I mean, you know, chess is different for everyone. There are many different ways to view the game, and a lot of things that seem boring to some players may be interesting to others. Some people, like, for example, they find endgames boring. You know, other players like think that endgames are the bomb. I mean, it's you know, it's really up to you. There are many different ways to really understand chess, to love chess. It's like art. You know, you can appreciate it in different ways or appreciate different things about it. So I guess for me, like, this sort of position, not my favorite. You know, I really don't particularly like symmetrical pawn structures. I like to play positions with some dynamism in the pawn structure. So in that sense, to me it is like a slightly boring position. But I like, this is not boring to me that he has a concrete weakness on d4. That's not boring. That's sort of interesting. We do have a slight issue with our knight. We play h6 here. Yes, we weaken ourselves, but I don't think it's a big deal. We can make him commit his bishop. And then usually I don't like to put my queen on c7 in this kind of position. But this is more like an old Indian than a King's Indian, actually. I want to unpin my knight so it can move freely. You know, here's a maneuver for you, like knight h5, knight g7, knight e6, knight d4. 1, 2, 3, 4 moves to get to d4. That's the way you need to think in this kind of closed position, where there's not a lot of tactics because the symmetry of the position and whatnot. A lot of people say, yeah, this is a boring position. Well, winning is not boring to me, you know, no matter how it's done. The D file has limited value, I think. He doesn't have any entry squares. I control D8, D7, D6, D5, D4. What's he going to do, you know? Just total control of that file. We go knight h5 now. Kind of like it. I would say the way that Soltiga has played this is kind of like a typical strategic mistake. Trading off the strong pawn on d4, then playing e4, creating dark square weaknesses. To the uninitiated, it's like, oh, it's equal, it's symmetrical, both sides have the same amount of material. It's not, though, you know, because of this, really the key is the d4, d5. He can't make an outpost on d5, but I can make an outpost on d4. Some people like the Berlin defense. I mean, if you like, you know, equalizing, the Berlin defense is probably good, but it does exchange a lot of material, takes some of the life out of the game. But if you're black and you want to hold a draw, probably not a bad place to go. And a lot of grandmasters can win in the Berlin defense with the bishop pair against weak players. Weak players can lose on the white side of the Berlin endgame very easily. If you don't know what we're talking about, we got off subject to a discussion about the Berlin variation of the Ruy Lopez or Spanish game. I'm done. Hello. Estragon was the one who mentioned boring position doesn't exist. I think that's a good attitude. I think I also play suboptimally in positions that I feel are kind of boring. And if I had Estragon's attitude, that would be less likely to happen. Okay, what can he do? I mean, threatening knight f4 maybe, just kind of establishing a strong outpost. I'm not sure it's all that devastating, but his queen doesn't have a lot of good squares. I suppose it will go to d2. Old Indian-y. There it is, bishop g3. I think that's a reasonable way to play. My intention was to probably grab that bishop, but I don't have to rush it. It's not going anywhere. In the event of like knight to c5, I don't know. I'm just going to take it. We're going to play straightforward. Maybe I should grab the c5 outpost permanently. What about knight c5, b4, knight e6, c5, a5, a3, take, rook a3. We start to get some pressure on the queen side. Should we consider a5 locking down the dark squares first? Not to give him the option of playing b4 at all. That's interesting. We'll see what he does about it. What are you going to do about it? If knight a4, there's a very interesting move here, b5 for black. b5 probably does work. Knight a4, b5. The problem with that is that he would take and then go back to c3, winning the d5 square. So I think rook d2 looks too routine. Now I have bishop c3, bishop b4, excuse me. But I think we should stick with the plan. I think this bishop on f8 is a good defender. Trading it to double his pawns on c3 is a plan. It's probably not bad. But in the vacuum, I think I'd rather hold on to that dark squared bishop. It has some good long-term value. You know, in the event of bishop e4, he could have played like queen e3, protected against double pawns, and hit my pawn on h6. You like more strategic maneuvering? Then all the blast tactics. I'm done. I like both. I like strategic maneuvering, especially when I have just a massive advantage. I think I'm going to need to play king g7 at some point. Shoring up, as they say, shoring up the dark squares. The other option would be, you know, to play like h5 and bishop h6, but that would leave other squares unprotected. This guy on f8, he's pretty much holding together the fort on the dark squares. It's really hard for white to do anything with that very bad bishop. Now we swing in to e6, exploiting the hole on d4, which was that was the plan from the get-go when Soltigo played d takes e. This is a very instructive type of position. You will, if you play the King's Indian defense, you will 100% get games that will follow this exact scenario. It's very hard for white to play. He doesn't have any active plan. Basically just shuffling the pieces. The file is irrelevant. He has now very, very serious dark square weaknesses. Okay, we can get the d4 outpost permanently. I'm thinking about h5, but we should be going for his king. Going for his king, I mean, down the line here. Ultimately, I mean, this is getting very unpleasant for white. Knight d4 does have this move. I think I might want to calculate a little bit here. Knight d4, forcing his queen to an extremely awkward square. d3. The problem with the knight d4 move, though, it doesn't really do anything. Maybe now b5 again, bad. We're going to shift the queen. I didn't like knight a4. In the event of knight a4, I can play bishop back to a7 now. And I'm not really, I don't really mind letting him exchange here. The problems just remain. h5, h4. Got this anchored. I mean, if I have to, I'll just play c5 at some point. We've also got a4. Queen g5 is in the works. He just stopped it. That gives him knight f3. He's getting low on time, so he's starting to move very quickly, and he's threatening knight takes d4 or not. I want to play h4. Actually, just c5. I was talking about this before. I mean, why not just play c5, lock it down? We've got h4 maybe. I probably missed some better moves. But he's basically playing... He's playing with no bishop. Still, he's done a hell of a job surviving it all here, I would say. I'm better, but it's not winning now, you know, and now he's threatening to really screw up my whole position. I don't want him to trade that. Better, but not winning. All right. We take toward the center, keep him confined, not trade pieces. great defensive job by white. Just kind of hanging on. Here we go, back again. Probably not a great move. Pushing him a little bit on the clock. I shouldn't have let him survive this far. Threatening h4 now. Looks like he's got an idea. For whatever it's worth. Wow, that's a bad move. I mean, he probably has pawn takes pawn. Although there I had queen takes, then rook f4. He still was defending, but I think king h2 may just lose. I mean, this looks nasty. Takes and f5. Am I making a mistake here? Kind of walked into it, like my game with ants where last night my king gets punished. All right, Soltigo, good job hanging on. I think the problem is in the beginning, really, like the beginning and the end. The beginning of putting yourself in a bad situation and having to play this passive position where there was no plan. At the end, you played king h2, committed harikiri, but in between, you showed a lot of toughness, so sort of salvaging this passive position to the point where you might have been fine. If we look for a second here, if we go back a couple moves, I mean, I think even here he might be okay. Apparently not. Like h4 is winning. I didn't think it was that devastating, but. Perhaps here. He's worse. Okay. A pawn worse. Because of this protected pass pawn. Don't make that exchange on e5. Okay, guys, we're going to move on. Clash Kid is up next. He's a strong player. Sludgy, did you eat a steak? I'm extremely strong after eating steaks. But unfortunately, I had just a hamburger today. Steak and eggs is my favorite breakfast. It's a casino buffet breakfast, which is my favorite. All right, I don't know what to do. Why did you ask if I ate a steak today? Am I very fourth time black in a row? You must have been playing a lot of another King's Indian. I don't know why I'm so obsessed with the King's Indian lately, but I don't like to play knight f3, d5, c4 anymore. The proper ready move order. I don't really like letting black play d4 there. I feel like that equalizes for black, you know? Whereas, I mean, the King's Indian attack probably equalizes too, but it doesn't allow black this space advantage like in the Benoni that he gets. Clash Kid, we played the Simul game in the same move order where you played yesterday e6, c4, bishop d7 or something like that. I think the reverse Grunfeld is pretty good for white. I mean, the Grunfeld is good for black. You wanted to eat American food. Yeah. I'm having steak tomorrow night. Actually, I'm going to be grilling a steak tomorrow night. I like to cook grilled meats. Bishop f5. Bishop g4 was played against me by a Chinese guy and had this incredible game where I was crushing him and lost. It's like Bishop g4, I mean, you know, you can't afford to do that, a tempo down in the Grunfeld. It's already like a very aggressive line, kind of asking for it in the normal Grunfeld, but with a tempo down. But anyway, Bishop f5 is a little more realistic. I would think you can get away with Bishop f5. But anyway, we're going to try to play inspired chess here. I mean, you're not going to find a lot of examples of people trying to play Bishop f5 with colors reversed in the master. The Hungarian food is good. I do get bored with Hungarian food. Actually, I like seafood, and Hungary is basically landlocked, so you can get only, river fish, freshwater fish, and it's extremely expensive. I mean, because Budapestians don't really eat that much seafood. So I'm happy to be in the United States where I can get various types of seafood, although every kind of seafood is very expensive. Today I actually picked some scallops out of the water. They were alive. You could just like reach down in the water and pick them up, And they're funny, they're like alive and they like open and close their little shells. But you're like legally not supposed to just like take random shellfish from the bottom of the sea floor. Maybe they'll come and I didn't take them home. I set them free. But I don't think anyone would arrest me for eating them. E6. Okay, so he's playing this without taking on c4. It's basically like a Tarash. Are we going to get another transposition-y kind of thing going on here? Queen a4 is interesting. Some sort of queen a4, rook d1 type of stuff. Looks kind of cool to me. Let's try it. It looks fun. Karma KMX. I don't know what that link is. But if somebody wants to play with me. You're now craving scallops. Yeah, these guys were like big enough that you could eat. I mean, they were, they were actually not large, but large enough to eat probably. But I never actually often, there's a lot of them. Like they must be spawning like crazy because on the, like a few meters off the beach, I mean, just like walking in tons of living scallops. Queen a4. At first I thought they were clams, Obviously clams are different species of shellfish. Hobos probably eat them all the time. Yeah, I mean, hobos would be in heaven, man. Lobster actually used to be considered garbage in like colonial America. It was like fed to the lowest income people, to like workers and slaves would be fed lobster. Now it's like considered the most gourmet seafood in the world. Okay, queen a4, bishop e7, c takes d. You're making me second guess myself, Mr. Clash Kid. Let's take on c5. That's kind of half a tempo. He did a similar thing against me yesterday where I grabbed the c-pawn. And I did manage to take him out. I'm sort of winning half a tempo. So we don't really transpose to a Tarash. It's actually more of a kind of... well, Grunfeld, or yeah, still Tarash could be. C takes d5 looks pretty nasty, and then we're really in Tarash country. You can always take with a knight, Clash Kid. You're glad to live in Maine for the seafood. Right, we have another New Englander regularly watching the stream, Soltigo. So lobsters. Lobster is one of the big attractions in Maine. They export them all over the world. But anyway, back to chess here. Clash Kid, I'm hoping he takes with the knight. Got 63 viewers, that's pretty cool. C takes d5. So what he ends up with is basically like a Tarash where he's got these bishops on funky squares. I mean, the bishop on c5 is okay, but bishop on f5 in an isolated pawn type of Tarash, it's not terrible, but it doesn't really seem to gel very well with the position. Just kind of hanging out there like an exposed piece. You know, you can argue that my queen on a4 isn't exactly a ball buster piece. Let's see. Natural development when in doubt. Bishop on c5. I've got to be careful with our f2. Don't make the mistake of playing like rook d1 in Grunfeld or Tarrasch type positions when the other guy's going to have really nasty pressure on f2 or f7. Arsenal fan Richie found that out against me in a Grunfeld type, e3 Grunfeld type position. Not that much different from this. Danish Borosh. Danish Borosh playing in the World Open. The World Open is going on. I'm sad that I can't play in that tournament. Really good open tournament, but can't do it all. Time for bishop g5. Count the undefended pieces. You know, can we do something with those guys? Like if he does d4, I was thinking about queen b5. Starting to hit all the undefended pieces simultaneously. But I don't think I have any crippling threats here. The bishop on c1, unfortunately, it usually gets fianchettoed in Tarrasch, but with my queen on a4, I'm not really in a hurry to take away his retreat squares in this position. You want crab legs? Go to Maine. Crawdads. I don't know too much about Louisiana seafood. Never been to Louisiana. One day maybe. Okay, so here we are, d4. Okay, this is where I was looking at queen b5. B takes c, queen takes c5. That looks like it actually loses material for me. C takes b at the end and like I lose the exchange. Not great. So what are other options? I was thinking about, my first idea was rook to d1. It doesn't do a whole lot other than developing a piece. That isn't a bad thing, developing pieces or pizzas. I'm not sure I really have a threat here. We could try some kind of funky intermezzo like knight h4. Knight h4 isn't totally stupid. It's not exactly a great location for that piece. Now again, queen b5 starts to come into consideration. Kind of like it. Queen b5. Queen b5 takes on g5, takes on c5, bishop c2, rook d2. We're just surrounding you. Surrounding everything. It's a crazy world we live in. You know, count the undefended pieces. Try to make use of it somehow. Maybe we'll have a better pawn structure at the end of the day. This position is actually a lot like some lines of the c3 Sicilian I play with black. That's the way I'm handling it. I'm playing as if I were black in a c3 Sicilian or some kind of isolated queen pawn position with an extra move. It's getting complicated, but you know, I can always just take on f6 and we may end up having problems. Complicated is right. Well, at least we can take on f6. I mean, that's definitely a good thing. There goes the king's side. Although, if the queens are traded, the problem is there's a limited amount of damage Okay, this was not on my radar. But it does make sense. You know, this way he avoids the damage to his king side. Probably avoids losing material as well. It looks like this way may equalize for black. I don't really have any tricks. I was really expecting him to play pawn takes f6. I don't know why. I guess I have nothing better than to take. It's sort of forced. And it's just kind of equalish. Got, like, my last opponent, no squares to penetrate. No squares to penetrate on this open file, so maybe, you know, I have a healthier pawn structure in the long run. It's not much to go with, but it's something. We have 95, and actually leaving us with some kind of microscopic advantage, apparently. Maybe not. It's probably microscopic pushing, like, non-existent. Our advantage is basically non-existent. I didn't see anything better. I want to get it as b7 pawn, but the problem is he has counterplay here. You don't like eating sea creatures. I can understand that. Oh, Soroche's here. World loser as well. You guys are up late. Good to see you, Soroche. Well, this is getting complicated officially now. If he breaks through at e2, he's going to have some serious pressure on my f2 square. Huh. I don't know. Even 93 is possible. Take. Oh, man, what did I do to the screen? Take e4. Undoubles his pawns. Okay, sorry about that. We are getting low on time, so let's just find some good moves. Knight d7. Knight d7 is damned interesting. Please don't be a blunder. He's got more time than me. It's not the move he anticipated. But if I take on c6, takes on c6, rook takes e2. Maybe I had rook d8 check followed by bishop d5. And even there he had rook a7 defending f7. So we have a very, very deep plan here. If I can eliminate that bishop on c5, I don't know. We don't really have much. I'm going to take on c5, play rook d5, win back my pawn. Hopefully, like, lay claim to some kind of micro advantage again. Like, rook takes e2, knight takes e5, takes rook d5. His bishop goes somewhere, hopefully non-invasive. Then I play rook takes c5 with the two b's in a kind of open position. Russian's mouse. Russian's mouse. Do you have a good mouse in the US, or is it the same? That's for me to know and you to find out. It's the same one at the moment. I have another one, but I don't know where it is. So I'm using the crappy one. Alright, here we go. So this is the best I could come up with. Hopefully I didn't miss anything. Yes, his rook's on the 7th, but we eliminated this guy who was molesting f2. And so we, like, you know, his rook on a2 isn't really hurting anybody. It's just sort of hanging out there. You know, actually both his rooks you know, they're kind of funny. They like, oh, we're really tough guys, but we don't do anything, you know. Bishop e4 was not what I had in mind. It's probably a great move. I have no tricks I can imagine here. Can I play f3? Yeah, that's a good move. Taking, I guess it's just a half a dozen of 1/6 of the other. Really good move, bishop e4, Clash Kid, because, you know, bishop pair is something you don't want to mess with. Now we're going to go like Aronian on you. This ending looks really unpleasant. Domination. The domination station again. Sounds like something from PBS. Not happy. Not a happy moment. We're just pile driving. Ooh, this is going to get ugly. This is going to get ugly. All right. Kind of fell apart at the end there, but I like that game. I like that game. Struggle. Monkey pushing what challenged me to 5-4, which is fine. He's only played in my simul streams. Guys, we're gonna be streaming for another hour till 6:30 p.m. My classic 2.5 hour stream. Clash Kid says A+3 is not enough time to think. I agree, man. I like this guy loves this move. He played it against the Alekhines defense yesterday. I think you got to branch out the Kopek. It's like an accelerated Kopek system. You can play whatever you want here with black, but probably best to have some sort of plan in mind. Arsenal fan said, I remember when I first started playing these streams, A+3 seemed to be much longer. Yeah, you start thinking more than you used to. Against this opponent, I think I had the same. Now, years ago I played Dr. Kopek, and so where did I play him? In like a blitz tournament or a rapid tournament. And we had a game where it went like, maybe it was actually an exhibition game online, I don't remember. But it was something like, I think it was online. It was like this, and I played d5, and he played e5. And I played knight d7. I think he played bishop b5. I think that's probably the classic Kopek system. But not the only way for black to play. Not really. I think for white it's practically forced. I mean, you could take on d5 if you want to, but I don't like it. Now, if I played knight d7, you play e6, maybe you can play some kind of Spielman type of pawn sacrifice. I have my doubts about that. Doesn't look right. I mean, knight g4 though is a different story. That knight could end up. Actually, here I'm not so sure about this. It's pretty weird. He has at least 2 or 3 moves here. There's also queen a4. This is just super bizarre. Interesting. We might find some games that have been played by reasonable players, but not too many. 15-minute needed. Do you have a good flight back to the US? Says Laz Hazior. Yeah, actually, except for the pilot's landing, he did one of these things that I don't really know a lot about aeronautics, but you know how you land in a jet, and sometimes they land very, very gradually, but sometimes they seem to land very, very quickly. Like, I don't know, the control tower's like, land now, you know, and the dude did one of those where it was just like, we just like went down super, super, super fast. I'm not really sure why they do that, you know. It may just be about like timing as far as like runways and stuff, but it wasn't really the most pleasant landing. Other than that though, it was totally good. Okay, queen c7. We allow e6. It's perfectly doable. We're actually encouraging him to play e6. Maybe I'm asking too much of this position. I'm not sure. This is probably Kopech analysis. But you know, a lot of people get sick when you land the plane very quickly. Fortunately, not me, but some people. Other than that, it had been a great flight, and like coming into Boston. If anybody here wants to fly, continentally into the United States and have a smooth time, take a late flight into Boston. Customs is just like bored. They want to go home. You're guaranteed to go through really fast. There's not that many like flights. Get a late one. Queen c7, putting pressure on e5. He could play bishop b5. He could have played this before. He's gonna go for it with the e6, which is what I feared. But I'm gonna accept the challenge. We're accepting the challenge of this Spielman, Rudolf Spielman-like sacrifice. I don't typically play French type of structures, but I thought we'll play according to principle here. Now he has a host of things he could do. He could play like grab the pawn. That's not really recommended, but it might actually not be that bad. Strange but true. Maybe queen takes e6 is not a bad move. I was thinking it was good for me, but I'm having doubts now. It's not bad for black, though. I do have the good center. The problem is queen takes e6, knight e5, or knight on d to e5. Queen takes d5 is possible, and it looks like perfectly okay for white, which I didn't really think was possible. This is the other variation, which probably is okay for white too. Now he's really threatening h7. He's threatening e6. Okay, it's a lot like a c3 Sicilian, knight f6, c3 Sicilian. I just hope he doesn't have some sort of tactical trick I missed here. At least we won't have any bad white squared bishop. I wonder if it's worth considering playing like queen d6 here. Queen e5. Lazy man's move. So white got away with something, it feels like. Black is okay. But at the same time, I feel kind of sad that it looks like white's position is quite okay. Maybe c4, and then that pawn will get undermined. Wonderful. Queen e5 check, queen takes, knight takes, bishop check, king f7. Looks about equal to me. I don't really want to let him castle and keep the queens on the board. Then my king might be a real liability. But I don't think I'm better here. I was thinking that I would be better, but I don't think that's the case. White does have the bishop pair. I do have fairly good control of the center to compensate, and a good centralized king. So I think we should evaluate this around equal. This d4 move is sort of debatable because he gives himself an Isolani, and I don't think he necessarily had to do that. It would have been safer to play it a different way. Now I have rook c8, intermediate move. Also the super cute like knight c6, bishop takes c6, rook c8, bishop takes d5, knight takes d5 with compensation. But no, that's not necessary. I mean, we could play knight c6. I don't really like him taking and giving me that backward pawn there. Rook c8, followed by knight c6. looks like the way to go. Way to go, man. Chopping on c1 would be nice. And now... So he has an isolated pawn. I have a good king. He has the bishop pair. I have a backward pawn. I think it's equal. I don't know. I don't think I can claim any advantage. But I'm confident I'm not worse here. Yeah, although things could go wrong. But we have plans, which is always good. Plans are good. But what are the plans? Blockade style. Knight a5, knight c4. Maybe just develop a piece. Problem with this move, it's not really the part of a greater plan, although maybe knight g4 to weaken him on the king side. He seemed to be aware of that idea, judging by his last move. Now, the proverbial now what? h5. For lack of a better move, I don't know what to do. I'm going to transfer to an outpost on f5. It's one of like 5 different plans I could choose from. I just don't really like g4, allowing g4. It's hard to put pressure on this pawn on d4. The other plan was knight a5 and knight c4. Obviously, that's a totally reasonable way to play. Probably much more natural than h5. No bad pieces. Look, ma. Look, ma, no bad pieces. Bishop g5. And your bishop is just... Oh, man. Oh, no. Right, alright. No problem. I'm going to sack the exchange. Maybe we'll even go with a central roller. I did miss this little petite tactique. But that's okay. That's what life is about, man. Dynamism. We've got the rolling center, a pawn for the exchange. And white's a little better now. But it's okay. It's dynamic. We blundered an exchange. I was thinking way too much on positional stuff. I didn't understand what he was trying to do with bishop g5. Now knight c2 doesn't do anything. We probably want to stay as active as possible. This move. For example, I don't know, man. This is giving me nightmares of my game from yesterday. Against no, don't do that, please. Monkey pushing wood. Don't give me more time. The game's already, long enough. Actually, this is a 5-4, so it's not too bad. But don't give me more time, guys. I'm perfectly, content with the 4-second increment. But I like to use all my time, so I'll try not to lose on time. Bishop takes a3, knight takes d5. It's not all that clear. It's okay. Try to clamp down. I don't know, maybe it's equal here. I just realized that I sound like one of the guys from Ancient Aliens when I said that. Not a show I watch all the time, but there's this one guy who just says the words always the same way. Just realized I sound like that guy. Okay. Whoa, where are you going? Stay out of my face. Um, should we just start rolling? Like my rook getting trapped there? That's just awesome. I really, really want my rook to just get totally trapped in the middle of the board on f4. I have no idea what I'm doing. I have apparently like no clear plan. Kind of like a series of cheapos. This guy's 1700, but he's up the exchange and he's like, oh, dude. I don't know, man. He's faster than me and he's outplaying me. Take that back. Maybe I need that extra time now. I'm just not that fast. It's reminding me a lot of the simul game I had yesterday against one guy. We're probably going to need to play d4. We're probably going to need to play d4 here. $12 seconds, 11 seconds. Sorry, the neighbors were giving me this passed pawn on the outside. Man, I have no idea. He's finding every move. It's starting to drive me crazy. He found that too. He finds like every move. And very, very fast. I mean, this guy really 1700? Finally made a blunder, man. Whew. He has a resource, I'm trying to say. That was lucky. Man, I was probably lost. Very, very fortunate. He played fantastically. Look at this. I mean, I must have been lost here. Right about this moment, I would say that's the lostest I got. When he picked off my H-pawn, like there's nothing I can do. I'm clearly worse on the border of losing. You know, this was an excellently played late middle game by White. You know, after the point where he lost, you know, he actually won the exchange. Maybe there's some miraculous way to save this. Bishop takes b4. Look at this move. Rook f3 check. That's crazy. How does this work? Wow. King e7. Rook takes c4. B takes c4. What? A takes b4, d4. Oh my god. This is seriously working? What about like rook a3? My pawns are just walking down. Apparently he's winning this. e5. Oh my god. Yeah, it's like the computer needs to see over the horizon here. It's not that easy with these pawns. Two connected passed pawns. His king is kind of far away, but I'm not believing this, really. I'm not quite believing this. Anyway, really tough game. Okay, we were lucky there after blundering that exchange. Grandmaster Noob 420. Did we play him before? No, he's new. Okay, 7+2. Anyway, world losers here. Oh yeah, we've got two moderators in the chat, world loser and Sirotye. You guys have been really good though. I don't really need a moderator all the time. Okay, Grandmaster Noob. It's hard for you guys in Europe. I think that today's Monday. So Wednesday we're going to take the challenges in random order. You know, kind of mix it up. Today we took them in order of I received them, of how I received them. To mix it up, to make it more fun, I think Wednesday we'll just like randomly accept challenges rather than taking them in order. Just letting you guys know in advance. If you're really, really anal about your challenge being accepted in order, what is that? A4. Okay. Maybe not that bad. I think that A5 is probably principled here for black. If I don't play A5, he can play B4 and turn it into like a normal E3 system, speckled hen or whatever you want to call it, type of thing that Grandmaster Keith Arkle from the UK likes to play, like stuff with knight D2 and B4. This is sort of similar, but by playing A5, what will prevent him from expanding on the queen side properly. I'm getting a lot of King's Indians. I don't know. I guess I'm playing the King's Indian when I'm given the chance, but it's funny. This is like our third one. I don't love A4. After A5, he's got very little flexibility in his pawns on the queen side, whereas I can do pretty much anything. But I have to branch out and play something different the next time someone plays D4 against me. Too much King's Indian for one day. But I'm kind of working on the King's Indian because for years I wasn't playing it much. I wouldn't say years, but in recent years I haven't been playing it as much as like the Nimzo and other stuff. So at the end of the day here, it's not such a bad position for white. It's not a great position, but it's not that bad. He's kind of playing like he was black. Queen C2 is probably a mistake. He should play knight D2 first, and then, maybe later put the queen on C2. I suppose bishop F5. It's going to force him to go back to D1. Not that my bishop is all that great on F5 necessarily, but it undevelops his pieces. Disrupts him, This piece isn't actually... I'd like to play F5 eventually, to be honest, but if we can disrupt him, we're going to do it. So, because of the B3 pawn, I think he has to play Queen D1, right? And we gained a little bit of time, but again, nothing earth-shaking. He could probably play Knight D2, then I have Knight D3 check, or even Bishop D3 at some point. How should we handle this? Maybe Queen D7. Queen D7 would sort of block my own bishop's retreat. I don't know that that's a good idea. E4, Knight D4 is not good. So as I said, the bishop actually gets in the way on F5. It's not its intended landing spot in this type of position. Now I have more space. I would think like bishop back to D7 wouldn't be a bad move for black. Bishop G4 just trades pieces. Knight E4 just trades pieces. Because knight on C3 is actually getting in the way of his pieces. Rook E8. I might want the rook on the F file. I'm not sure. So what do we do here? It's really kind of tough to decide. C6 with the idea of Queen B6. Maybe that's to be seriously considered. C6, take. We are attacking the head of the pawn chain, but I think an exception to the rule here is in order because B3 is so weak. We're going to attack the head of his pawn chain. Nimzovich is like rolling over in his grave. We're going to attack the head of his pawn chain to enable this like frontal attack on B3. and active development. I mean, c6 is not an unusual move in the King's Indian, but you have to be careful and adhere to principles when you're talking about playing on the opponent's strong side of the board. Normally in the King's Indian, black's playing on the king's side, white's playing on the queen's side. Playing moves like c6 is dangerous business. Okay, now we're looking at queen b6, just ignoring him. We want to leave that knight on h4, I think. That's what I think, you know. I have some tricks here. Evil tricks. I mean, bishop d7 looks totally normal. The problem is, once I hung this pawn against Dmitry Gurevich in the New York Open, it was so strange. Here I have an idea. I mean, if he takes on c6, I can take back with the pawn, and if he takes on d6, I can play like knight e4, hitting his knight on h4, hitting his queen, knight takes e4, knight takes e4, and on something like queen d3, I play queen takes h4, threatening queen takes f2. It's still not over yet, because like in that position, still there are more moves to come. g3, and I'm not sure what's happening. But he does not go that far down the line, so now it just looks good for black. Like, this looks like a good King's Indian. This is weak. This is hanging. Knight takes d5, loses a piece. So he has to take back with the pawn. We don't have a backward d pawn. We can just play like queen b6 or some other thing. Maybe we have tactics with a knight on h4. Try to win a pawn with knight takes d5 isn't so clear. Looks a little materialistic, because I'll lose control of d5. Like knight takes d5, knight takes d5, queen takes h4. I'm up a pawn, but I've got this horrifying backwardness like in my position on the d file. I'm not sure I even want to take this pawn. That's the issue at stake here. Another possibility is the queen b6. There is a problem here. Bishop b5 is a really nasty positional exchange that might be good for white. I have another idea, e4, speaking of nasty. Wow, e4 is sort of wicked. He does have an answer to the, it appears, an only move. Only move style. I just can't resist this. Dynamizing. White is still hanging in, man. I'm not sure about this. Grandmaster Noob. Did we play before? There was just somebody else called Noob who played in my simul yesterday. Knight takes d5, queen takes d5, anything takes d5. I mean, I just don't think that I want to do that, you know, to create backwardness in my own position along the d file. It was risky enough for me to play e4, honestly. I didn't have to do that, you know, probably had a more simple way of playing the position. Now we have some sort of threats. Generally a decent King's Indian, but no breaks. You know, f5, f4 is my only break. Not that easy to realize. What's my plan? Like, other than cheapos, I have to watch out for the exchange bishop b5. Okay, he just went after my d6 pawn, but he missed the threat. So I have g5. I think he had to play g3. This was only move. Maybe f4 could be played, but it looks horrifying. I mean, f4 is really weakening. I mean, g3, maybe not that bad, though. So we win a piece for a pawn or some odd material. That's what I meant by cheapo. But you got to take care with your knights on the side of the board like that. Knight on h4 is just asking for it. That's why I wanted to not let him exchange on f5. I want to leave the pieces that are in bad positions leave them there, you know, so that something tactically comes up. In this case, g5. Yeah, he could play g3. It's one way to play. I agree. It opens a file for the rook. Might give him some kind of vague hope. Not a bad idea. Not a bad idea under the circumstances. Though objectively, you know, he's just losing a piece for one pawn. In all circumstances, that's not nearly enough. So it was a catastrophic loss of material that caused his demise. Not a terrible situation after g3. First of all, I mean, you know, we're gonna play g3 here. In this position, give us a retreat square back to g2. Maybe f4 can rebound. I was thinking about playing something like bishop h3, just keeping his knight in limbo, you know, and probably forcing him to play something like bishop f1. But I wasn't sure if I'm really better there. For example, bishop h3, bishop f1, or g3, bishop h3, bishop f1, queen d7. Now we're again threatening g5 in all lines. It's always popping up as a threat. His knight, will it eventually be able to get trapped? Maybe. My knight on c5 is... Knight on c5 is insecure. One, two, three, four, we're up. Our pawns are kind of a mess, but we are up a piece. That should be more than enough. h3 we can play. Maybe we should play it while it's possible. It will remain a kind of thorn in white's side. I mean, otherwise he might play h3 and that pawn might become a weakness on h4. Guys, we probably have time for like 2 more games at least. It's worth the backward pawn because you have queen before after. Arsenal fan Richie. Yeah. That was my thinking. A4, H4, H5, A5. All are really weakening moves, yet half the time the response is to play it right back. Well, I think if white handles those positions correctly, I mean, they're not really weakening. But playing the white side of the king's Indian attack reversed, it's tricky business. Okay, he blundered with queen d2. A second blunder, allowing knight takes b3. But we had this in-between move, which decides. Okay, we'll see who's up next. Guys, we're going to be doing this Monday, Wednesday, Friday, also a simul every Sunday here on lichess for the duration of the summer, July and August. I'd like to thank my European viewers who follow me, you know, regularly, staying up late, and all you guys from the US who maybe didn't follow me or haven't followed me since you know, maybe last year when I did the same thing. I'd like to thank everyone for joining me. Please subscribe to my channel. We've got affiliate status. We can accept subscribers now. I'll call it a channel. I don't know what to call it, you know. He's threatening knight takes e4 here, which is just downright mean. So we have knight e8. Trade everything. Like, I guess that's the way to go. When in doubt, trade it out. I almost had a heart attack there. Scared me. I was like, what? If only you had some kind of smothered mate. Okay, Silly Turtle and Arcan. I'll definitely get to those games. And if it's fast enough, maybe one more. We didn't play e4 today, have we? Seems like I've been more black than white. Makes a change for the 1300s. Not to completely batter you. What does that mean? I don't get it, man. I'm not that bad. Okay, Silly Turtle played the Scandinavian. Interesting. Maybe this 1300 will batter me. I try not to discriminate on people, you know, with playing people based on rating. Okay, if I played like just 1300s the whole stream, it could get a little bit monotonous for the people who are like 2000. But most 1300 players are kind of like, you know, afraid to challenge me. And by the way, this is a kind of rare sideline. I think I've also experimented with bishop f4. I mean, I'm not a believer in queen d8. You know, people can say what they want, but I think it's just inferior to queen a5. And queen d6 is interesting. Okay, it's playable like everything else. It's not that bad, but I would think that, you know, the queen on a5 is more active. But there's less theory. This is interesting approach. This is an interesting approach. Knight d7, so if I want to castle queenside quickly, which is one of the ideas here, he is going to have good control of the d5 square. I think I should keep my options open. Okay, now he played e6, which means this might be a consideration. I mean, I'm not really afraid of bishop b4. Is it worth playing a3 to stop it, for example? I don't know. The jury is out. Weird position for sure. Oh man, I don't know. Should I like change tack here and maybe just like play knight f3 and maybe think about castling kingside? Everybody can castle kingside. It's a weird opening. Silly turtle. Have I ever played this player before? Yes. 2 times. I did not recall that. You can castle either way. It looks like a French Rubinstein now. Basically a French Rubinstein with my bishop on g5, knight on f3. He's going to play this move, which is dynamic. Definitely dynamic. If I castle bishop b7, and then whatever. Castle kingside is possible too. It's not nearly as aggressive. Would he dare play like bishop takes f3, give up his bishop? That's kind of dangerous. I'm thinking maybe king b1. Sidestep any kind of bishop takes g5 tricks. Because I want to play knight e5 in some positions. Although it's probably not essential. I mean, king b1 is... It's got to be a good move. Funny line he could play is bishop takes f3 there. Now I would think h4, like in all instances, is a good move. I don't really have a breakthrough. Uh-oh. Okay, now I don't think you can take that bishop, you know? That's the first thing. I don't think you can actually take it without getting mated. Therefore, h6 is probably a bad move. Now the real question is, can I take on h6? And the answer is most likely yes. It looks pretty brutalizing. I mean, bishop takes h6, pawn takes h6, queen takes h6. I just don't imagine how black is not getting mated here. How is he not getting mated? Bishop takes h6. I think it was a playable position for black where he's slightly worse. He needs to play on the queen side with c5, a Caro-Kann break. Got to be good for white. Now this is like starting to look like a game from the 1800s. The Black Death, Joseph Henry Blackburn, would appreciate White's position more than anyone. He liked to have doubled f-pawns. Even when he was like castled on the same side in the French exchange variation, Blackburn would like checkmate people in this type of situation. So now, yeah, bishop takes g7. That's the tactic. Looks pretty bad. Just eat our way through to the heart of the black position. Checkmate on horizon. Check is check. Must be answered. But I don't see him getting out of this, no matter how hard he tries. Pretty nasty situation. f5 was probably the only move that might avoid mate in that position. So, who's up next? We still might have time for 2 games. Rook h3 Soltigo was another good idea, definitely. Yeah, Arsenal fan, the cheats from the 1300s. Nice to have you late from Europe. Now I can watch while not studying. Okay, this is actually, yeah, this is another point. I mean, there are some people in Europe who like couldn't watch my stream because it was too early. So there are actually a lot of students and other people who like to watch chess in the evening. So the stream time can also benefit them. Guys, I just want to remind you, please subscribe to the channel here. And also check out my YouTube videos on YouTube. Video Chess Training is the name of my channel. Next up is Arcan. And we might have time for one more game after this. 16 minutes. If it's a fast game, maybe one more, I think. Yeah, the 5-3 Aneza might go through. But judging by the simul game against Arcan yesterday, Arcan, you're from Germany? Is this a double account? Arcan, do I know you? Are you somebody who played me already under another account? Or did German players just like the closed Sicilian? German players around 2100 just happen to like the closed Sicilian. Alright, yesterday I played the same line, but I just like routinely played Rook B8, which is the main line. And after the game I was like kicking myself because I wanted to play this Miles move. I'm not sure if Miles played it first or maybe Larson. But I effectively used this in a game against some candidate master once. At least it's a move that creates something kind of interesting and unusual. He doesn't play the critical try, which is e5. He just routinely like wants to transpose. But Arcan, are you sure you're not another player who's already been on our stream under a different account? Because there's another German player who was regularly playing on the stream with the same setups with White. And you just created that new account and you knew about my stream. Is it possible that you're that same guy? I won't tell on you. You're allowed to have 2 accounts. So Wednesday next time, yeah, Wednesday is the next stream. Same time, 4 p.m. Sometimes I might start a little bit later at 4:30. I'm gonna basically retain the right to start my stream whenever the hell I want. No, but I'm gonna retain the right to start the stream like around 4:30. So between 4 and 4:30 on a case-by-case basis. We have transposed, I guess, to a Rook B8 line. He just didn't. He wasn't interested in any of my trying to get him to play E5. All right. When they play these type of setups, like they can play 100 moves like very quickly because they always play the same position over and over again. They being these close Sicilian reptilians or whatever. Just kidding. All reptilians play the closed Sicilian. I guess queen b6. I think that there was an old Laputian game that was quoted by Joseph Gallagher in this book called Beating the Anti-Sicilians like 20 years ago. If it's good enough for Laputian, it's good enough for me. But he's an old player now. Wrong schedule. Oh yeah, Mubat. Mubat's kicking out the wrong schedule, guys. I'm gonna have to fix that. Tricks only. I messed with you. I moved to the U.S. I guess you didn't know about it. So every summer, like in July and August, I moved to the U.S. for a couple months to touch base here, and yeah, we're doing the morning time. Am I? Well, you're probably done your stream already. Over there, it's late. Surprise! You just never know what to expect with me. Alright, so bishop a6, I thought, was a Laputian plan. If I'm not mistaken. We're like delaying the king side. I've experimented with stuff like h5, but it usually backfires in my experience. You just like end up weakening your king side when you do that. Recommend not to do that. Nothing better than trading stuff. Now it looks like a typical position. Actually, years ago I saw Patrick G. Wolf playing something like this. Patrick Gideon Wolf. You guys didn't even know who that is. He's a grandmaster who quit playing chess. Former, well, officially, former second of Vichy Anand. If I play knight f6, he has e5. That's kind of irritating. I can play queen b5, then he just answers with a nasty move. Knight h6 looks awkward, doesn't it? We had issues with that yesterday. If knight f6, e5, knight d7, e6, sacks a pawn. I mean, is that really sound? Is he really set up for that kind of stuff? Maybe e5, knight d7, take. I think I have to do it. I mean, how else am I going to develop here? Could cook me up some dogs. Congrats with your what? With your girlfriend. Tricks only for winning the Dutch Championship. I think he means girlfriend. GF is girlfriend, right? I'm a little bit slow on the, modern. Could it be good finish? The GF. Share. Mikhail Share. Oh, Tricks only hasn't been on for a week. 2 packs of dogs. Dogs, lemonade, and hot hamburger sounds like typical American fare. Guys, we're going to have time for hopefully one more quick game after this. I am not playing any tournaments. I don't think it's going to happen till September. September and October. September, there's a tournament in Romania I might play in. Now, f5 was not what I expected. f5, he wants some kingside. He wants some kingside action, but I'm not so scared of that. I think our king is safe enough. We got coordination. I was a little disturbed by e5 there because it messes me up a bit. Here I have like queen b5. That's going to disrupt him. In fact, my plan is like queen b5, forcing some kind of concession. The other move, knight d7, is kind of passive. Brats are nice. People always bloody burn them, though. Brats, like bratwurst. I love this international stream. We can talk about hot dogs, hamburgers, American fare, German fare, English people cooking German fare. What else? What other international things can we talk about? You guys are making me hungry. But I had a hamburger earlier today. Okay, knight f2. I've got nothing on that, but I had this move, queen d2, b2, which takes the steam out of white's position. Okay, this will slow him down a little bit. I don't know if I'm better, but I'm not worse. That's how I operate, in Karpov style. First we equalize, and then we play for the win. Wow. All right, I'm taking it. Some people do this a lot. They'll just love to just randomly give you 2 rooks for the queen. But I think here I'm pretty well coordinated. So why shouldn't I take the 2 rooks? Now maybe he thought this a bit more deeply, about this more deeply than I really gave him credit for. I'm not sure. But, it seemed pretty random. Give me two rooks for the queen. I guess sometimes people are just okay, well, I want to complicate, it's a higher rated player. If I give up 2 rooks for the queen, I guess it just randomizes things. I mean, I think the coordination has the most say in such situations. It's harder to coordinate the multiple pieces. I had a friend when I was beginning chess, and he was totally biased. He hated playing with 2 rooks because they're hard to coordinate sometimes. So his theory was that he preferred to move all 9 points at once. That's what he said. I guess there's some logic to that. d4 is a good move, sir. Very logical. Not giving me any way to get in. Dutch food. I've never eaten Dutch food per se. Alright, we've got new avenues of possibility. He has one square which is a little bit disruptive, which is a5. We both have quite a bit of time, so we should use it. Rook b4. But rook on b1 is kind of overrated. Rook b4 just blocking access to a5 and then slowly worm my way in. That's a possibility. I feel like there's got to be a better way to do this. A better way to skin the cat. This is genuinely a little bit problematic. I mean, rook b4, rook a4. I don't know. I'm actually running low on time compared to him. He's got 4 minutes to my 3, but we'll keep some pressure on. It's not like he's losing because he has queen for 2 rooks. Technically, it's a pawn less. But it is a little hard to play with these guys. I think the bigger factor here is the fact that he's moved up so many pawns. He has to be really careful about not overextending himself. He's in the top 100 in Ultra Bullet. Yeah, I wonder. Top 100 in Ultra Bullet. Ultra Bullet. Where the hell is Ultra Bullet? There it is. 71 games. An Ultra Bullet player. Bishop c4. Probing. The problem with this is king g3. Of course, king g3. I really have to coordinate. You know what? I don't know what to do. I just don't really know what to do. Bishop c4 feels like a good move. It's just it's outside the pawn chain. It doesn't contain any threat. Just getting it out of the way where it's not a target, like to queen a5. Nothing can really attack it except for knight e3. But if he does knight e3, all kinds of other things happen. This game is going to last longer than I had hoped. His spy. Fermented cabbage with potato. That sounds gross. Fermented cabbage? Seriously? Alright. I'm lucky I'm not really hungry. So, we are down to 2 minutes each. It is hard for both sides to make progress. Maybe I can play like rook a4 and start eating away at that pawn on a2. It's hard for white to do anything. I mean, has the smell of a random move, doesn't it? Bishop g5. What is that? Okay, I could play king f8, Banco Gambit style. Nothing wrong with that. We'll keep that in reserve. There's also the good old knight f6. Though e5 looks pretty irritating. f6 is out of the question. I could play bishop f6 if I have to. I think I'd rather play king f8. Okay, he's clearing the e3 square. Yeah, but that could get kind of complicated. We'll go with king f8. And we're safe enough for the moment. Not not a lot of squares for the bishop in the event of knight e3. What are we doing there? Knight e3, h6, knight takes c4, rook takes c4, bishop takes h6. He just repeated back. This position is kind of getting on my nerves, honestly. I just don't think I'm winning this. I am better, I guess. Rook a4. Is this a blunder or a good move? Of course, knight c3. a3. I don't know where to go. Rook back to b4. I mean, I think the time might cause me to have to take a draw here. I mean, if he wants a draw by repetition. I'm getting down to 51 seconds. I'm not that thrilled about this, honestly. It's very hard for me to kind of make progress. His central pawns are just controlling all the squares in the middle of the board, making my life kind of difficult. So that'll give us time to play one more game. I mean, if he's willing to draw, it's cool. All right, let's see what the analysis board says here. Okay, it's a draw because I made a draw, but like, let's move back a move. What does it think? Yeah, I mean, the computer actually, like, truthfully thinks white stands a tiny bit better. It's kind of surprising. I mean, computers are pretty materialistic. I mean, I have 2 rooks for a queen. And Engine thinks that Arcan stands plus 0.3. Alright, let's play one last game before we go. I'm a little surprised by that evaluation, but it is hard to do anything here. 5 plus 3 against Yaneza 12. Okay, one more e4. Let's get out of here for today. We'll be back tomorrow. Back tomorrow at 4 p.m., possibly 4:30. Not tomorrow. I lied. I'm sorry. I said tomorrow. I meant Wednesday. Usually I do a 5-day stream, Monday through Friday. I'm doing just Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, so not tomorrow. We will not be back tomorrow. We're going to be back on Wednesday. I will post it on Twitch channel, and So between 4 and 4:30 Wednesday here Eastern Time, USA. Tomorrow is a holiday. Tomorrow is the 4th of July. I'm taking the day off. That's why we're talking about hamburgers, hot dogs, patriotic stuff like that here in the United States. Arkan played. Interesting decision to give up the 2 rooks for the queen. That was certainly not obvious. I would think that white would have been worse. Maybe he was initially and I misplayed it or something. Okay, so Yaneza played bishop d7 and a6. In such situations, sometimes you have to be careful about knight d4 later on. Being like a simplifying move. If he plays bishop b7 and castles, he'd have that threat to play that. Wow, taking. We're going to try to break through quick here. A kind of luxurious move, g6. You know, I mean, you can certainly just play bishop e7. There was a Reshevsky game I did a video about where he did some crazy stuff like queen e7, but this looks a little slow because of e5. I had a similar game not long ago. I mean, can you really let me play e5? Wow. I mean, I would think this leads to very interesting sacrificial possibilities for white. Maybe sacking a pawn to jettison his whole structure. Like e6 as a positional pawn sacrifice. Maybe I don't win any material, but I just mess up his whole like coordination by feeding this pawn to him. I also have bishop g5. Maybe I can start with bishop g5 and wreak some havoc. But I think I would point the finger to g6 being kind of maybe asking too much from the position. Alright, no pointing fingers. e6, bishop takes e6 may not be that bad for black, so I'm looking for more. Looking for more means this. And then what? Is the million-dollar question. His queen has to go to an awkward place or something worse like that. Yikes. Okay. He's ready to castle now. It appears. Shall I just develop? Shall I play rook d1? Rook d1. Gotta like rook d1. Classic whatever it is. Wordle attack. Some people call it the Warmald. It's actually a Wordle attack with queen on e2 and a6, but this is actually a Berlin defense. Don't see a forced win. e6 is nothing special. I can play rook d1 or knight c3, both of which look pretty promising. Oftentimes the best policy is to just keep increasing the pressure, not releasing the tension ever. Knight d5. Knight d5. Man. Can this be right? I think he's got some sort of move here. Bishop e6. Bishop takes c6. Can that be right? Bishop e6, bishop takes c6. Bishop takes d5. What? Bishop takes d5, winning a piece. Okay, so that doesn't work. He's got h6, bishop f6. And we're just going to hang out with you for a minute here. Nothing really happening. We're just going to keep you where you are and then try to increase the pressure. Guys, last game for today. We'll be back on Wednesday, July 5th. All right, now, one would assume that I can take on c6 and win the exchange now. I don't see any problem with that. We may have other options like knight takes e7 check and rook d1. Also looks kind of tempting. I'm a big believer in simplicity. Bishop takes c6. The problem is here, you know, he's actually going to have a pretty damn tight position down the exchange. Like really good bishops. I have the feeling I made a serious error there. I should keep the tension here. Rook d1. After rook d1, he probably has to play a totally desperate move like b5. Maybe the best move of all was like rook e8, knight takes e7 check. Knight takes e7, and then rook d1. And I've got e6 and stuff like that. I think I let this get out of control. Now he has some compensation. I'm really not happy with myself. He has real compensation here. This is actually not that great. I mean, maybe we can win, but it's just way more than he should have had. Two good bishops, no pawn weaknesses. I failed. Now it's actually a very difficult win, I would say. Black has excellent defensive chances here. He's got no weaknesses, serious weaknesses. I mean, h6, a6, it's not a big deal. Man, this was a serious, impatient decision to play, to cash in on that material win with the exchange too quickly. There was an opening called the Gates of Hell. I don't think that's a real thing. So there's an American opening. You know what? The problem with chess openings is, like, you know, they're not copyrighted. I mean, I'm sure that World Chess and the owners of FIDE would love to copyright chess moves as well as opening names. They could call it the Illusionov opening or something, but I don't think that chess openings can be copyrighted. So the thing is, there are in many cases multiple names for openings. I've been playing chess for like over 30 years. If anybody, and if I'd ever heard of something called the American opening, I mean, legitimately called that, I would know about it. Okay, I think white is still struggling to prove here what I've got. He has these nasty little tricks. E6, like breaking through against his king side. Probably a good idea. I mean, the problem is that knight d4, he has queen d5, and it just threatens mate. It's not good. But whereas e6, this starts to chip away at his king side. You know, I think after this move, Black might start to have some issues. And I'm not that worried about bishop takes f3. I mean, I think that g5's covered. This is still going to be a very tough position to win. But at least it's the best try. There might be other options too. Yaneza can grab this. We've played Yaneza 4 games, but it's been a long time as far as I can remember. Bit over time here. Archangelsk. Well, the Archangelsk is definitely a real opening. Quite popular too. Do American Masters count? Count as what? As chess players? As masters? As opening names? I didn't know what we're talking about. I'm missing some of the context in this conversation, apparently. That's the problem. Yes, Arkhangelsk is a Siberian, not Siberian, it's a city in the Arctic, near the Arctic Circle. The home of Alexander Ivanov, my good friend, and rival in New England chess for many tournaments. Okay. Maybe f4. f4, queen f5. I just don't want him to have access to g5. And f4, f5 might be an option at some point too. I don't think he can let me get on the 7th rank and trade queens. The queen c4 looks kind of like a neutral move. I don't think he's doing anything with that. I have rook there. We get on the 7th and it's going to be serious problems for black. Start scooping like c7, b7. Actually though, yeah, queen takes a2. I have a number of good moves. Maybe queen c3. He's not threatening anything. Well, my rook, obviously. Right. We're going to grab this guy. What is going on? Try to break the connection. Easier said than done. Damn. Play this queen ending with an extra pawn. The a pawn should be winning. Oh, that's a check. That is a check. That is not what I wanted to do. Wow. He is a bullet maestro. Wow. Very, very lucky to finish it with that move, man. Excellent, excellent defense by Yaneza. He really, really deserved at least a draw there. Thanks, guys. We'll be back on Wednesday. Nice to see Sarotier and World Loser here. A couple of our not regular moderators nowadays, but good to have you guys on the stream with us. Don't forget to please subscribe to the channel. Also, check out my YouTube channel, Video Chess Training on YouTube. We welcome donations via PayPal. We'll be back Wednesday with more Blitz and Classical Chess here. And what else can I tell you guys? Videos on Friday on YouTube. Sunday I do a simul. It's running at about 5 p.m. Sunday nights here, Eastern Time, USA time. Wednesday, 4 to 4:30, more Blitz and Classical Chess on Wednesday, July 5th. That's Eastern Time, USA. Thank you guys for joining me. We will see you on Wednesday. Bye-bye.